First, I will tell a little bit about Rijkswaterstaat, and then I will explain how we do procurement. And as I've just heard, what we are doing is legal, and the way I understood it, it would also be legal in Slovenia because it is all objective. The first thing is we are the operating agency for the Ministry of Infrastructure. So this is why we exist, to keep everyone safe from high water, low water, keep transport going through the country, and to keep the environment at a basic level that everyone has a very nice life. The things we do, basically, is managing the waterways, the water system, and the road system. And I saw this morning some lists of numbers, so I looked up the Dutch numbers. We are twice the size of Slovenia, and we use almost 10 million tons of asphalt. So we have 8 times the amount of people and 5 times the amount of asphalt, 130,000 kilometers of road. We manage only 5,000 of those, the highways, and they vary from, most of them are 3 lanes, so 6-way high lane, and on the really busy parts, it's a 10-lane highway, for instance, between Amsterdam and the city of Utrecht. Sustainability is an interesting subject, because you can, of course, make a road and think a road is only for transportation, but the government also has other goals. For instance, the reduction of carbon, or the use of less raw materials, or the creation of a nicer, multifunctional countryside. Especially in a small country, you try to combine functions. Instead of saying this is for the road, and that is for energy production, and that is for nature, you try to combine them as much as possible. So if you think about procurement, it is very interesting if you can get an incentive out to the companies that deliver roads, logs, do dredging, whatever they do for us, that they start thinking about also the other goals that the government has. And if they can integrate that in the way they are doing business. It helps, of course, as a country if you have specific goals that you can publish, that you can be proud of. We have, for instance, the goal on energy that we say we want to be completely climate neutral. Climate neutral, so that means we don't use any energy ourselves. We can use solar power or wind power, but also the production and the maintenance of the roads will also be done in a way that it does not cause emissions of carbon in 2030. So if you consider that, the way we are doing things now, we have to really, all of us, we have to start thinking about what would it mean if we produce a road without emitting carbon. And we have to do things differently. We believe we cannot think what has to be done differently, not on our own. So we have to cooperate with the whole value chain. So this is about getting the knowledge all through the value chain, thinking about solving our goals. Then I will just take carbon as the main example, because that is the most clear problem that we're all facing for the coming generation. We spend about 3 billion euros per year on infrastructure, and that is causing this amount of carbon emissions. So it's asphalt, it's steel, it's driving sand and soil around all through the country. And if you are aware, what are the activities that cause the most carbon? Then you think, oh, now I'm doing a contract where this work is part of the project, then we should put an incentive in it. We didn't think of the way we do this all by ourselves. There's very good cooperation with the building industry in the Netherlands. Also, building industry without infrastructure. So it is really, I think the difference between Holland and a lot of other countries is that we talk so much within our own country. Talk between industry, their suppliers, our customers who are driving on the road, the people that use buildings. They all have thought about what should we do if we want to use procurement as a way to stimulate doing things differently. This was done in the beginning maybe 6-7 years ago, and so gradually now it is being implemented. We have been implementing this for 6 years, so for us it's already the standard way of doing things. For the railway agencies, the standard way of doing things. For smaller communities and the provinces, they're gradually changing into this behavior. I will explain, so although I'm standing here as part of the ministry, but this is not the story of the ministry. This is the story, someone from the Dutch building industry could actually also tell this story. But it is different if the people that pay for it are telling the story. I know that. I think this is the most important slide of the whole presentation. So if someone says that my time is up after this slide, that's fine. Because this is the way of thinking. And I think it's very nice that it hits a lot of the topics that were mentioned before. Because it starts by taking the decision that we are not the best people to design a road, to design what asphalt mixture should be used, how it should be transported, because that is not our specialty. Maybe it used to be our specialty in some parts, and people still feel it a little bit as a loss that we don't get to decide everything. We say, no, we want to have functional specifications. So we say, we would like to have a road for this type of traffic, for that time, for that period of time. And of course, we also sometimes think, why don't they use the low temperature mixture? Why don't they use this? Why don't they use that? But as long as the incentive is there to start thinking about it, then all these things will come to us. But first, you have to create the space that we don't make a design. So we don't ask an engineering company to make a design, and then we ask for the lowest price to build it. We put it in one project, so engineering companies and builders have to cooperate. And some builders have their own engineering companies. And already the effect of bringing those two worlds together creates huge change. So after that first decision, everything should be based on life cycle costing. So even if it is a design and construct contract, if you are comparing tenders, compare the tender exactly as was shown on what will be the total cost of ownership during the whole life cycle. Because that's the sensible thing to do. The most practical thing to do that is to have design, building, and maintenance in one contract. Then the incentive is there automatically. Oh, I have to maintain it as well. Oh, sorry, then I'll change some things in the design. Then I do it really clever. But if you just want lowest price, then you get lowest price. And sometimes it's not possible. So if you have a big stretch of highway and you have one big bridge in there, then sometimes it's difficult. Do you do also the maintenance in the contract or not? So we will also have design and construct contracts in certain situations. But the really large contracts that we have are always design, build, usually also finance, maintain, operate. And then you don't have to do anything extra. We do, but already 90%, I think, of the sustainability thinking, of the changing, of the innovation will be put in the contracts by the people that are responsible for that whole project. Then we get to the difficult, but also the fun part. Because contract specifications, the automatic reaction of people that are working in environment are always to let's put a lot of specifications in there. We want them to do this, and they should not be allowed to use this material, and they should not be this, and they should do this. Of course, if you say someone, if you tell someone that you have a certain goal, and the energy production of the tunnel cannot be more than this, then it will be, of course, exactly that. Because there is no one who will put in the extra effort to reduce it even further. So it's fine, and we use it, but actually it's only to get rid of the bad guys. Because especially if you want change in the whole industry, there will be people that have old-fashioned factories, and they could dump their products with extremely low prices, and just to get rid of those people, to get rid of those products, I should say, we put a minimum performance level, and from the 1st of January in 2018, there will be, and I'll explain later, a maximum environmental footprint for 1 ton of asphalt. And about 10 to 15% of the asphalt that is being produced in Holland then is not allowed anymore in highways. And of course, we expect other buyers also to implement the same. So some companies will really have to start thinking about changing or losing market share. And of course, this number is going down over the coming years. This number was not thought of by us alone. It was thought of in discussion with industry. So what speed of change is possible? What is really helping to create movement, we think, is the next part. So it's not the specifications that lead to innovation. No, that is only to prevent that the sort of, let's say, the older generation of technology is still around. What really creates change is awarding criteria. So we don't say, for instance, for the example of the tunnel, we don't say only the tunnel should use less energy than this. No, it should use as little as possible. And if you use less than 100, you will get more chance to get this contract. If it's 90, you get more. If it's 80, you get more. If it's 70, you get even more. So there is an interesting phase when you are comparing tenders. You are comparing tenders on price and on certain quality aspects. And we do it in an objective way. Otherwise, it creates a lot of discussion. I think it is officially also possible to do it differently with pluses and minuses, but it just creates so much more transparency if the contractor himself can already calculate what will be my bonus. This was the way of thinking. But in practice, of course, it never goes exactly as we would want to go. Because a road layout is not something we leave to the building companies. So already the government has to make certain decisions. You can't say, make a road from Amsterdam to Utrecht. So that sort of decisions are made. There is a law in Holland that says the top layer should always be open asphalt. Because basically it's like one big city and noise reduction is there, is the main concern with roads, or is one of the big concerns. So that is not negotiable. Because you could do that functional, but it's been done in a way it says open asphalt. There's also a thing that says don't change the design on the different parts of the way, one uniform way of constructing the road. Because you could say, especially if you have 5 lanes going north and 5 lanes going south, you could say some heavy duty lanes and some only for regular cars. But that then creates limitations in the way you manage the traffic. So that sort of cleverness is not allowed. And of course we say functional specifications and then that seems everything is possible, but it's not. Because only technology that can be proven to work is accepted. So if someone has a really clever idea but has never ever been done, in a tender procedure it will never be accepted. And that is exactly why next to the tender, because we have a relation with the building industry as buyer and seller, that's where this works. But next to that relation, you also need a more cooperative relationship, where you together work on innovation, where you do tests, discuss the risks, and after tender procedures, you say, it would be great in this tender to test this new material that you were talking about. Maybe we could do 500 meters as a new testing stretch. That's not the sort of thing you get in a tender procedure, but you can have that discussion as equal partners where you have both benefits. Things can be kept secret if necessary. If there's huge benefits to us in the long run, for instance, if someone would come to us and say, we have a material now, you will have open asphalt and it will stay clean and open for the next 30 years without doing anything, I think we would be willing to spend a little bit on the innovation. So that is just something you have to discuss outside of the tender procedure. But both ways we have to use. And then the tender procedure is used to reward the companies that really offer us products with extra value. So they can vary a lot of things. The asphalt composition is free. Of course, there are limitations, but it's free. The whole production process, the whole logistical process, it's all up to the industry. The thickness, so the whole demonstration of the model from Vienna, you calculate based on functional specifications, that's exactly the type of thing we have and we use to compare tender procedures. And of course, if it is a contract where you have designing, building and maintaining, then we give a lot more flexibility to the organization that does that, because it's basically their problem. We'll just have the example, this is a road in Amsterdam and this is how it's going to be. This is not something you leave open to the market. Now I will explain how we use the MEAT, most economic advantageous tender. We have two aspects in sustainability. There's also a third that we usually use in maintaining roads, and that is the amount of time, I'd say it's the amount of congestion that is caused by works on the road. So we say this whole stretch has to be redone, a lot of work has to be done. If you can do it in less days, because preferably you do it without closing the road at all. So there is in advance already in the tender stage a nice list where they can say what they're going to do, and they can calculate their own bonus. If they use only one weekend, or if they use only one evening, or if they use only 2 Sunday evenings, they automatically see that that is better to avoid congestion. And if someone said, but I'm really, really cheap, and I closed the whole road only on Monday morning, yeah, then he says, yeah, Monday morning is not a clever time to close the road. But if that is so we don't say when it should be open or closed, that's up to the market, but you put the incentives there to point everyone in the right direction. What I will do now is explain these two systems. Because I'll explain in practice how it works. There's a tender procedure. The contractor has said, I will do this project for 69 million euros. And because of those two awarding criteria, he has a certificate and he says, I will use sustainable materials in a certain amount. He will be compared to his competitor as if he had said, I will do the work for 61 million euros. So we value his extra sustainability effort as 8 million. I will do the first thing. The DuboCalc thing deals with the use of sustainable materials. What we actually do is you have to fill in a software system. I can give a small demonstration. And all the environmental effects that are associated with the material, from producing it all the way to getting it in the road, are translated into euros. So we monetize all environmental effects that deal with the material. And then that's just an objective value that you can use in the comparison. So this is what we do. We get 3 different tenders, and we say for each tender, one says I will do it for 90 million, one says I will do it for 45 million, and too large a difference. They have 3 different values in money, and they will also offer 3 different values in EKI, in environmental cost indicator. And in advance, we have said the comparison will be 60% on price and 40% you can earn maximum bonus if you go for the maximum bonus on sustainable materials. If you use traditional materials, then you get 0 bonus. If you are completely innovative, more innovative than we could have thought of, then you go for the maximum bonus. You can use this for sustainable materials. You can use it for energy use. So if the example of the tunnel, energy use can also be translated in euros. Also, if someone says, but I will integrate solar panels in the noise barriers, then he gets plus 80 points, because that is good for the environment. So it works both ways. There are also projects where you think it's not about the material, because everyone will use almost the same material. We have, for instance, projects where you have to use huge amounts of landfill material. There it's all about logistics. How far away will you get it, and how will it be transported? It can also be translated into environmental cost indicator. So we have to think in advance, what will be the main decision that the contractor is going to make, or the designer is going to make? And if we think the main decision here will be, where do I get the sand? Then we don't ask him to put the whole project in this calculator. Then we only say, we only compare the logistics of this project. So we try to keep it as simple as possible. To use this, we have a database we don't have a database. The industry has data on their own products. And the industry has given the data out of their own free will to the national harmonized database. That is a foundation that keeps all the data for the steel industry, the concrete industry, all the building industry. They all put the information in there. Some are really brave. Some producers put in, I have very sustainable bricks. So they put in their own investment and they put the information on their own brick in there. Other industries say, let's not put the individual in there because then we show that some are really good and some are really old-fashioned. Let's only put an average value in there. That's fine. We don't mind. But then if we start using the comparison, on average data, we put 30% plus. So we think because then we know there will be some spread. And then the individual companies know, but then I am being compared to my competitor based on the average value, so they have an incentive to put their own data in the database. So if you are really innovative, you have invested in clean production processes, those companies will put their data in there. And then it is fairly straightforward. It's exactly the same as calculating costs. You have amounts. If you are doing a road, you have this layer, that layer, that layer. Okay, now fill in the first layer. What compounds will we use in the first layer? X amount of tons of this, Y amount of tons of that, Z amount of that. And from the database, it's all added up. And in the end, you get a picture that looks like this. You see, this is the element where we have done the calculation on. And the people that are doing the design can already see where in the design is the economic effect coming from. Oh, it's the transportation. Can I optimize the transportation? So it is also used as an optimization tool for the people that do the engineering or that do the logistics. What can I do to reduce the AKI? So we use it as an awarding criterion. We also say the AKI is you are only allowed to use asphalt with a maximum AKI value. We give the tool to engineering companies and building companies that you can use it for yourself. We don't know whether they do that or not. They can use it. And we could, of course, in tender procedures, ask companies to use it as an optimization tool, but we never do. Now, the interesting thing is, this sounds too good to be true. Because the railway sector in the Netherlands, they created a certification scheme. In the beginning, it was only for 69 companies that work for the railway agents. They say there are 5 certificates. So it's a maturity level. If you have 5, then you're really thinking about carbon. And 1, you're just thinking about it sometimes and a little bit. So the company has a certificate. And the clever thing is, these certificates can be used as proof how good you are implementing carbon measures in projects. And for some lawyers that sounds illegal, but I will explain what the trick is. Because we say it's an extra effort, so that can be used at the tender stage as a degree of extra quality. It has been tested, discussed, and I will explain it more, but it is fully compliant with the law, of the European law, I should say. What does it do? It tells a company, if you want to have the highest certificate, maybe I will explain it here. There are 5 levels of certificate. At the first 3, the company looks only at its own carbon emissions. What can we as a company do to reduce our own carbon emissions? And they don't only have to make their own carbon footprint public. No, they have to look with competitors for new information, new measures to reduce carbon footprint in the sector. And if you don't do that, you're not ambitious. You can't reach level 3. So you can, if you are really clever and you think, I have a very good idea and I will not share it with my colleagues, then you don't get the bonus points. So what this actually do is create a community that is all the time looking for new measures that they have to share, that they have to implement. And everything they do, they have to publish. So universities can look at it and look, well, he says he's really ambitious, but we've compared him to his competitors, and actually he's not. He's really bad. So it's cooperation, it's insight. At level 4 and 5, the company is not only looking at its own emissions, but it starts to look at what is my influence in the value chain. And then for the asphalt industry, things get interesting. I was in Paris at the conference from EAPA, and I was really impressed by the work of the group that was looking at rolling resistance, for instance, because that is exactly the kind of thing where you can, as an industry, tell to the whole world, basically, stop looking only at the energy content of asphalt. The real discussion should be about what is the effect our industry can have on carbon emissions in the world. And that's the way of thinking, the sort of innovation. If you as a company are investing in that sort of research, then you can have the highest certificate, and then with us you get a 5% discount when we are comparing tenders. There are 800 companies or 800 certificates now given out in the Netherlands, also some in Belgium, some in Germany, but basically for companies that work on the Dutch market. But also, for instance, for the Deutsche Bahn. So there are small companies, big companies. The whole building industry basically has this certificate, and now we have the problem that all the big building companies that work for us are at level 5. So our contract people start to complain, then why bother? Because they're all doing the same. But I'm more from the sustainability side. Well, why bother? Because now they're all behaving themselves. They're doing something great. So don't stop doing this. It's a success. 50 organizations are using it. And we are considered a hugely conservative sector in the Netherlands. So that people are doing this. Of course, there are companies that say, we only are doing this because the government wants us to do this. But that's maybe the way they start. But after a while of doing this, they usually tell us we would actually keep doing most of this stuff even if we would not get the tender bonus. Because it just is a way of looking at your own business. It creates different products. It's commercially interesting. That it works has been proven now by scientific research, University of Utrecht. They have compared companies with the certificates in the same sector with companies that don't have the certificate. And the amount of carbon emission reduction is double. So on average in Holland it's about 1.8% reduction per year because people buy more energy efficient machinery anyway. But for these kinds of companies, it's only so that's only at the level 3, so only within their own company, it's double. And this hasn't cost us anything. Tender costs have not gone up because companies have looked at their own energy use and have made savings there. So instead of what the environmental people always want to do with a prescriptive use of contract specifications, we believe this is the way forward. Having an incentive there to make industry think for themselves, my company, what sort of measures can I take? Working together with people in the sector or working together with their suppliers or working together with their clients. And that creates new knowledge. And if they implement it in projects, then they get the bonus. So we think it works. So you have to... Are there any people interested in the legal trick? I will explain anyway. Because officially, European guidelines says you cannot give, in the awarding stage of a tender, you cannot give someone a bonus for what the company has been doing in the past. The comparison can only be on the quality or on the aspects of the project itself that the tender is about. So what we have done is we only ask for carbon emission measures on the projects, on innovation, on insight, on all the things that we think are necessary to create less carbon emissions. And then it's the companies that have the decision, how am I going to prove that I'm doing this in a project? And they can offer us proof only for the one project, but the whole certification scheme is set up in a way that if you have, as a company, more than, let's say, 2-3 projects, then you think, oh, it's much cheaper to do the certificate as a company. Although the certificate demands things of companies that we would not be allowed to ask. But it's the companies themselves who choose it. Companies can also, no, I will only do proof per project. That's also fine. But this is the way most of the companies are using it now. So it is some sort of proof that we accept, not something we demand. I will give you a few examples. This is from a municipality, from our point of view, a very small project. I think it is a concrete bicycle road, sorry. Probably because of the tree roots or something. So this is being done. First, the government thought, what will be the main aspect of sustainability in this project? It will be the use of materials. Okay, then we put an incentive on sustainable materials. So that's the knowledge you need as a client. Where is the main sustainability aspect? And then there is an incentive and the bonus. So in the tendering phase, it's price and your sustainability effort both decide who gets the project. This is a small project. Then the largest project in the Netherlands in decades, project of 2.3 billion euros, I think. So this is highway with tunnels, with some bridges, really complicated. It's from around Amsterdam, around the airport. It's cut up in 6 small parts. And each of these parts sustainability was part of the tender procedure. And we won a prize for this, especially for I think it was the blue or the green part. The Procura Award. And what actually for us was very funny, that for the people that were judging these projects, this was considered very innovative, although for the project team itself, but this is already our standard for 4 or 5 years. We're not really doing anything new. This was the first energy neutral project of this size. Because of the size, it was also possible to integrate energy production. So solar panels and I believe also windmills in certain locations, not decided by us, but decided by the consortium that was going to build this. And of course, we put in the incentive. We would actually like to have a part of infrastructure that does not use any energy. And if you put the incentive out there and people start thinking about it, this is the sort of thing you create. Smart transportation, using ships if possible, huge change in the use of recycled materials, high percentages of use of asphalt, also smarter use of asphalt. And I expected a question about what is so smart here, but I couldn't reach the guy who could give me the answer. So I don't know what is so smart about it here. But it did save a lot of tons of asphalt if you look at our reference design. And of course, the reference design, that is critical. If we move too ambitiously, and each time if a new measure is being implemented in the sector, now we put that in our reference design, that's not fair. No, so the way we think about the reference situation is more like the standard, a little bit conservative way of doing things, so that there is a really big incentive. It doesn't cost us anything, because it's a competing market. So all the companies know that the first part is easy, but the higher parts, they have to work. So the competition is on knowledge, not on being efficient and the lowest price. Then what is the wish list? Because it's not there yet. We need a lot of improvement on life cycle costs. That would be great. Because also then there is money to invest in innovation. Decreasing the environmental footprint of roads and asphalt would be great. Why not use 90% of recycled material also in the top layer? So not downcycling anymore, but everything in the same layer should be possible. We think lower temperature should be able. Some contractors, and we are probably one of the contractors would laugh his head off now when he was listening to me, because they were telling us, I think for 11 years, can we allow the low temperature asphalt? And we say, yeah, maybe. We have to do some tests, and then let's do another test, do another test, because we are extremely conservative. But of course, we do cooperate with the tests. A practical way to look at the rolling resistance, to get that also integrated, my personal opinion would be a maximum rolling resistance for asphalt would be great in a contract. That would not only be valid at the stage of a new road, but that would also be used during the maintenance phase. That would be, I think, also beneficial to the industry. And we would like to have a continued cooperation with the industry, especially on the speed that change is possible. And on the way we come from idea to proven technology, because there are a lot of ideas to do things differently. And in the tender phase, as I explained, we will only accept proven technology. So how can we create with industry a good discussion of say, that's a good idea, and if you come with that idea in the next tender phase, it will be accepted. Are the models good enough? That's exactly the sort of projects we have to do with the industry. And if you are aiming for innovation and different design, different materials, quality control is more important than ever. Because if something goes wrong in the execution, people will not blame the way of execution, people will blame it on the innovation. And then it will be gone immediately. So quality control is an issue in the Netherlands. With industry together, we're looking at increasing the level of control. What I found well, maybe just a little story. Do I have enough time? Okay. Because a few years ago, there was an interesting contract. We were also experimenting. One of the first contracts was, let's not make too specific what our goal is. We just want a sustainable road. And let them figure it out, what sustainable means. That's really dangerous, because then one comes with safety measures, and one says, well, we will actually educate the towns around the road about sustainability. And, well, then we are comparing, if you're talking about subjective comparison, that's disaster. But there was also already in that contract the Dubocalc system, where you have the stimulants on sustainable materials. And then we evaluated with the contractors the way the tender procedure had gone. And they said, actually, that was a really good one because we could get the maximum bonus on sustainable materials. They said, yeah, but why is that good? If you could all get the maximum bonus, or if you can get the maximum bonus, then you know your competitor will also probably get the maximum bonus. And if you think you are smarter than him, you should be pissed if it was easy to get the maximum bonus, because then it doesn't work. And then they just started to laugh. Say, yeah, actually, you're right. Yeah. But we were still happy we got the maximum bonus. That's just a good feeling to get a maximum bonus. This is the second slide that is not as important as the other one, but I think this is sort of the dream slide. Because we don't believe in sticks, we believe in carrots. Because carrots are nicer. If you look at the world we are in, basically, I just from the stories I've heard here, it's all about risk management, about them against us, and safeguards, procedures. It's not a value chain where all the parties are working together to create goals that we are all thinking are important. Because it's great if companies make profit. That's fine. It's good if there is competition. It's good if you create new products. So that's the sort of thing we should be working on together with each other. And we believe competition is great on ideas, on knowledge, if it creates the kind of goals that we like to create. Not only creating a road, but combining a lot of other governmental aspects for society, taking that into account when you are comparing tenders. And then the conclusion is that with this way of dealing, it works. We have a lower environmental footprint. We see change. And I should have put in a graph that shows also that industry takes a little time to start developing innovations, because in the beginning, there was hardly any difference between the different contractors, what they offered on sustainability. And now gradually you see the companies that have innovated, that have invested in new products or a new way of producing the product, the differences are getting bigger. The best offer and the worst offer. And so, of course, then the one who knows that he's worst on sustainability has to lower his price. And up to a certain point that is acceptable. But for instance, for asphalt, then he will meet the criterion, but you can't sell us the really bad stuff. So there is competition, and the prices will not rise spectacularly because there is also the competition on price still in there. It's 60-40 usually price. We do get total cost of ownership that is getting lower. The incentive is there to innovate. And what we see that at the moment there is more incentive from the building companies, and they're complaining to us that in projects, our project managers are not cooperative enough. Because that's the way they are trained. Keep it simple, your project should be ready in time. They are still in the world of the risk management, and if a contractor says, can we do something clever on just a nice test part, then the contractor says, that's a brilliant, or the people within the projects, they usually say, that's a brilliant idea. You can better do that in the other projects. I think it's much more clever to do it there. So there's some change to be made in our organization as well. But we think it is low risk, it's legal, and it's very cost effective. That's what I wanted to tell you.